And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Monday, December 13th. I am Josh Engelman. I'm joined by Adam Scher. We're here to break down a 9-game Monday slate. Easy peasy, normal old Monday. Not going to be all that bad. We are also brought to you by Yahoo Sports. Before we do anything, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Helps us out a ton. Adam, how was your weekend?
It was good. Had a nice NFL day again, so that was nice. UFC card was a lot of fun, not financially, just from a watching standpoint. So
Sure.
Yeah, it was a good weekend. How was yours?
Good. Yeah, I had a great weekend. Super easy. Weather was great here. Got to go out for the day. We had like a mini Christmas party for the Liverpool match on Saturday, so everybody brought food to the bar. We got a W, so that was important. So great Saturday. Watched the UFC card as well. Yesterday, decent enough. NFL Sunday. Any day you get a profitable NFL Sunday, you're generally happy. So I walked out of that one all right. And now we're back to NBA. It's a wild slate. I don't know how much you've seen so far, but there's a lot of value available. Guys coming back, guys mispriced because other guys are out. It's going to be a really interesting slate. So I'm excited to dive in if you are.
Yeah, let's go.
All righty. We're kicking it off. First game on the slate, the Miami Heat 5-point underdogs in Cleveland, 209 total. Now, obviously, we know Miami a little bit dinged up. No Jimmy Butler, no Bam Adebayo, no Markieff Morris, no Caleb Martin. On the Cleveland side, everybody that's available is available. So we'll start with Miami, where Tyler Hero, and this one's probably not one you've looked at so far, although Tyler Hero, 7,200 on DraftKings, to me looks like the best option you're going to find for the Heat. He's 6,400 on FanDuel with shooting guard, small forward eligibility. One of my favorite options for today is Tyler Hero on FanDuel. After that, it's sort of just like not a lot of anything.
Yeah, I think Hero still looks fine. He's been pretty disappointing in these games without Butler and Adebayo, but we know the upside is still there, especially like you're saying on FanDuel at the cheaper price tag. 7,200 on DraftKings looks decent as well. 5K for Dwayne Dedmon looks really appealing to me on DraftKings. His playing time has sort of been all over the place without Bam, but a lot of that I think has been due to just weird rotations, weird matchups, foul trouble, blowouts, all that kind of stuff. Now you're going up against a Cleveland front court that is just massive. No matter who's on the floor, it's some combination of Allen, Mobley, Love, just huge guys. It would make a lot of sense for Dedmon to be getting some minutes here. So 5K for someone that averages around the fantasy point per minute, and I think is likely to approach 30 minutes looks pretty good. 4,200 on Gabe Vincent. Looks like a solid price tag. He started in place of Martin last game, played 31 minutes. I think that's reasonable. PJ Tucker's salary has come up a little bit. Duncan Robinson is reasonably priced. But looking at DraftKings, I think the priorities for me are Dedmon, Hero, Vincent, and then I would say like Lowry, Tucker, Robinson are all sort of fine secondary pieces.
Put a pin in Dedmon for a bit because you're about to get like 4 or 5 more sub 5K centers that are starting in situations where they shouldn't be. And there's a lot out there today, but not that I disagree with you. He does look, to me, he's the second best option behind Hero. I just don't know how to read into Hero. I'm with you, like 0.93 FanDuel points per minute over the last 30 days, but we're still talking about a guy that should play 34 minutes or more in a competitive game and have the highest usage rate on the team by a mile. Fun stuff. We go to Cleveland then. Cleveland's a little bit easier. Basically like 4 guys that you could realistically, 4.5, depending on which site we're on. Garland, Allen, Mobley, Markkanen, to a lesser degree, Ricky Rubio. If you want to get into the Isaac Okoro business, knock yourself out. To me, Evan Mobley continues to be the best option, at least from a DraftKings perspective. I agree on FanDuel too, though. 7,100. If you get Jared Allen at 8,600, Allen's been better than him as of late. I don't think he's that much better than him that it's a $1,500 gap. So I like getting the slightly lighter price on Evan Mobley. But those 4 main guys, Garland, Allen, Mobley, Markkanen, they both look pretty good to me, or all look pretty good to me, rather.
Yeah, no issues with any of those guys. I agree with you on Mobley versus Allen. Not only is he cheaper, but he has power forward eligibility, whereas Allen's only a center, and we know how valuable that can be. Markkanen at 5K looks fine. Even Rubio at 5,200, you're expecting 26, 27 minutes if the game's competitive. Yeah, like any of those guys look fine. I wouldn't say any of them are likely to stand out as a highest owned guy on the slate, but Mobley probably the first one I get to at 7,100.
Okay. Do you have any interest in someone like Ricky Rubio? He's the only other guy that's viable. He's 5,800 on FanDuel, which is probably a little bit out of the range that I'm looking for, but do you see any interest there on DraftKings?
Yeah, I think he looks fine. Like he's likely to give you 26 minutes or so. He's a fantasy point per minute guy. He obviously, if he gets hot from the field or something, he can pretty easily outperform that price tag. So it's definitely a spot where I want to pay attention to ownership. I don't want to just be jamming in $5,200 Ricky Rubio if he's popular, but I don't think he's likely to be that popular right now on DraftKings. We have him at 6%. If that's the case, I have no issue getting there.
Lauri Markkanen on FanDuel is the only guy in the Cleveland side on FanDuel or DK in double digits in ownership. So that makes me like Evan Mobley at 7,100 even more. 7% owned right now. That's too low. I don't have anything else to add here for Cleveland.
Me neither.
The Golden State Warriors in Indianapolis taking on the Pacers. Yeah, I guess they're in Indianapolis, right? I just don't ever say it like that when it comes to basketball. 4-point favorites. Doesn't matter. The Warrior side of this one is pretty easy. Curry, Wiggins, Poole, Draymond. They're like the only four people that play enough minutes to be confident. Every other person on the Warriors ends up just being a complete question mark. Highest owned guy in this game right now is 15% owned Andrew Wiggins on FanDuel. No one north of 7% on DraftKings. That would be Jordan Poole, which I actually think is a little low for him. Do you have any priorities here for Golden State? Just doesn't feel like that kind of day.
No, I mean, they're essentially healthy. Poole did play 36 and a half minutes last game, but I think on average, you're still expecting 32 to 33 minutes. He's in he's a good fantasy producer. He looks fine at 5,900. I wouldn't say any sort of priority though. Curry, it's kind of the same thing it's been for a while. If you can get there, you should feel good about it. He's obviously really, really good. At the same time, he's 11,400 on DraftKings. This is a slate that has Nikola Jokic. This is a slate that has Giannis. So it's kind of difficult to pay up for somebody like Curry in large amounts of lineups.
Yeah, he's not looking all that great for me on this one. So it's probably the day where he makes 15 threes. Yeah, I wish I had more to talk about for Golden State. They're actually, it's weird. Like they're one of the easiest teams to talk about in fantasy because they just don't have other options.
They're becoming Utah-esque.
They really are. It's just like, oh, cool. Juan Toscano Anderson, Gary Payton, Bielitsa, Damian Lee, and Andre Iguodala all played 11 minutes. Fantastic. I started projecting out lineup minutes, and I was just like, I don't even care who I give these to. It doesn't matter.
Exactly. It's kind of like you just make sure you don't accidentally give them to someone that'll start getting in the lineups.
Right. All right. On the Pacers side, we kind of know what we're doing here at this point too. So questionable tag on Justin Holiday. That does complicate matters. Coming back from COVID. Brad Wanamaker questionable as well. The other TJs are still out. We've got Malcolm Brogdon and Karis LeVert in double digits of ownership on FanDuel for the 27th straight slate. Brogdon 7,300, too cheap. LeVert at least now finally is 6K on FanDuel, so it doesn't feel so outlandish. Brogdon, Sabonis, LeVert, Turner. I'm happy to work these guys into anything, and I do think some of them look better on FanDuel. The biggest question is going to come down to how many minutes does Justin Holiday play if he comes back, and who does it affect?
I don't know how many minutes he plays. I don't really care. Probably like 28, 30. I would assume that it affects Chris Duarte the most. I mean, LeVert, Turner, Brogdon, Sabonis, those guys aren't going anywhere. Right. Duarte could go back to the bench, maybe not, but either way, probably goes from having the potential to play 34, 35 minutes to playing less. You also potentially could maybe see a little bit less Brissett. It is important to keep in mind TJ McConnell's still out, so it's not the exact same situation as we had before. Right. Like there's still more minutes for Duarte. There's minutes for Holiday. There's minutes for these bench guys, but it would make me more hesitant to go to any of the non-main four pieces here if Holiday's back.
Alize Johnson test positive for COVID, so add another Bull to the list. What are these guys doing? Just like a giant human centipede at this point? Like
they're petitioning to have the game postponed. I kind of don't know what the alternative is.
I mean, they're running out of bodies. Even their replacements have COVID now.
Right.
Good luck. So I went to 28 minutes on Duarte. It wouldn't surprise me if that gets trimmed a little bit. I only went to 24 on Holiday, but we kind of just need to get a little bit more information. I'm thinking that O'Shea Brissett stays in the rotation just from like a size perspective, and that Keelan Martin kind of loses out a little. I'm not totally confident there, but it probably doesn't matter. Like Chris Duarte is 5,600 on FanDuel. Even if I give him all of his minutes, I don't really want to get to him. So I can just sort of focus on Brogdon, Sabonis, LeVert, and Turner and be done with it. Anything else for the Pacers?
I like the ownership that they're getting on DraftKings.
Yeah. I think LeVert is wildly underpriced or wildly underowned there. Turner, wildly underowned. I'm with you.
Yeah, I think they all are. I mean, it's not like it's a good matchup. Golden State is extremely good defensively, but they do also play at a fast pace. These guys aren't really expensive. They're playing big minutes in competitive games. This is just one of the spots where if, Brogdon were pulling 15% ownership, I would be like, okay, I'll find something else. But he's at 7% at 7,900, likely to give you 36 or 37 minutes if this game's competitive. Sabonis is reasonably priced. Brissett's the minimum. Turner at 6,300, LeVert at 65. Like there's not one individual guy that I'm most interested in, but I do think that this team just has the potential to, at the end of the night, it's just like, oh wow, I needed that guy from Indiana, whoever it ends up being.
I'm excited to talk about the next game, but before we do that, let's touch on the schedule for the rest of the day. Coming up at 11 a.m. immediately after this show, Adam will be back for the NFL Week 14 recap show. We have the Awesemo betting show at 1. We've got the Yahoo NFL show at 3. NBA pre-show kicking off at 4:30, leading into the NBA Deeper Dive. Adam will be back again for that one at 5. We've got Live Before Lock at 6. I will be back for that one. And then 7:15 NFL Live Before Lock for Monday Night Football. We've got free NBA player rankings today. If you go to awesemo.com, you can check that out, or look in chat to see if you can find a link from Nightbot. NFL single game rankings are free if you're looking to play showdown or single game contests on DraftKings or FanDuel tonight, or Yahoo for that matter. NHL player rankings also free today. This is where we get into it. The Sacramento Kings, 4.5-point underdogs in Toronto. For the Kings, we have no Rashawn Holmes, still out with the facial fracture or whatever happened to his eye. We saw Alex Len start. We saw Marvin Bagley start. We did not see Harrison Barnes play the minutes that we are yet expecting. So let's start here. Who do you think is the starting center for the Sacramento Kings today?
Alex Len.
All right, I agree. What is your expectation for minutes? Because he was well on his way to playing a bundle of them this last time out.
Between 12 and 48.
Yes, that I feel comfortable with.
But I mean, seriously, I don't know. Like, so he played, he started 2 games ago against Charlotte. He played 12.8 minutes. Now, that was a Charlotte team that was playing small. They had Vernon Carey play 11 minutes. They had JT Thor play 28. That was, the very shorthanded Charlotte team. So that makes some sense. But at the same time, it's not like the Kings went small. They went to Tristan Thompson for 21 minutes behind Len's 13. So that doesn't inspire a whole lot of confidence here. Last game against a bigger Cleveland front court, you got 24 minutes in 3 quarters from Len. The Kings closed with their bench unit because they were playing well. But I'm not, the fact that Thompson played so many minutes in that first game doesn't make me think it's a matchup thing. And then not to mention Toronto is another smallish team at this point. So I'm not super confident in Len. I think going something like 20-ish minutes makes sense, but I don't really know. I mean, like I
don't know where to give the minutes if I don't give them the Len. That's where it really becomes problematic.
Well, I mean, if you go like 20 to Len, 20 to Thompson, I think you can kind of figure it out. But the thing that makes, like, you can throw some minutes to Damian Jones, who got in there in the second half last time out. But the thing that makes this really uncomfortable for me is that Len's a good fantasy producer. So if I no matter how good he is, if he only plays 12 minutes, I don't want him. But if I give him 20 and he plays 28, I'm not going to have nearly enough. It's just really problematic when like these good point per minute guys have a huge range of outcomes. So, I mean, one thing to pay attention to in terms of, kind of how much do I want to value Len is what are we projecting the field to do? Right now, we have him at 1%. I kind of assume that comes up at least a little bit, but
that's impossible.
Yeah, but if, let's even say he's 6-7%, there's certainly tournament winning potential there where, if you were to say, okay, he's 30%, I'll be like, okay, well, I'll take my chances that Alex Len plays 18 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not even just Len. Like, you kind of got to watch the ownership of Tristan Thompson too. And just, you never know what's going to happen in one of these rotations. Right. I don't know if Damian Jones sees the floor. It obviously went well, but he basically played like 16 straight minutes to close out that last game.
The Kings basically just said, okay, we're done, down by like 29 points. And then the second unit went on like a massive run and actually made it a competitive game. This is a situation why it's important to be aware of not only fouls and things, but like just how games were going. It would be easy for people to just pull up the game log and say, oh, Len, 24 minutes, blah, blah, blah. Like they ran a flat rotation or something. They didn't. They ran a actually pretty tight rotation. And then the Kings just said, okay, like this, we're done. They took everyone out, halfway through the third. And then the score ended up being close. So it's important to know this game was a blowout, even though it ended up not being, only being a 14-point game. So I'm with you. I don't think that there's any guarantee at all Damian Jones plays. Same for Matu, who got 16 minutes of garbage time, essentially. So I think that you could see mid-20s in minutes from Len. I'm trying to kind of figure out if there was anything that really changed. So we know Bagley went from the bench to the starting lineup. Normally, I would say, okay, maybe that impacted Len because it moved a potential backup to the starting lineup, but Thompson was being used as the backup. So I don't really know that is the reason. They basically kicked Terrence Davis out of the rotation, which seems crazy, but they did. I don't have a good feel at all for what to do with Alex Len.
No, and now I'm going to hit you with the next question that I don't have a great feeling for, although you don't feel too bad about it. How many minutes do we project for Marvin Bagley?
I'm more comfortable giving Bagley a lot of minutes than I am Len.
Interesting. So the tricky part for me came in where I don't know where he's playing those minutes because it doesn't appear that they're playing him at the 5 ever. And if that's the case, then we got to give him a lot at the 4. And then we start bumping everybody down and they need to start coming from Buddy Hield or Davian Mitchell or something along those lines, unless they're really going to excise Terrence Davis.
I mean, kicking Terrence Davis out solves that problem.
Is that what we like? Do we think he's just out? I mean, he did play in the first half.
No. I mean, I think he plays. I mean, based on the last game, I would give him like 12 minutes. The fact that he didn't sub in until the 8-minute and 48-second mark of the second quarter, and then he only played 5 minutes and 41 seconds. Like, I think I agree with where you're going, where logically it doesn't make a ton of sense to just kick out Terrence Davis with how he's been playing. So it's not like it would be surprising if tonight he's the first guy off the bench or something. But just based on the rotations that we saw, I think Terrence Davis is the answer.
I went 26 on Bagley, mostly because
that's very reasonable.
One, like, he clearly doesn't have to close a game. They can do all sorts of different nonsense, but he doesn't have to be out there for that particular rotation. That felt like the most reasonable, like anywhere from 22 to 30 seems like the most optimal answer. And when push comes to shove, he's a $3,800 power forward on DraftKings. He just looks like a good value play, pretty much no matter what you're doing with Bagley, assuming he's still in the starting lineup.
Yeah. And so he played about 14 minutes in the first half last game. He finished at, 22 because they line changed everyone out. But even the game before that, so like he played 27 and a half minutes against Charlotte. That was a smaller team, but that's good just because it tells you at least physically, they don't have any issues running him out there. So I'm with you. I think 26 minutes or so seems reasonable. Certainly could play more, but I think that's very reasonable, and it's going to get him in a ton of lineups at 3,800.
Tricky dude. I don't like playing him because I think he sucks, but he looks like a good option today. I mean, he's not even good at fantasy for what he's supposed to be, but he's not bad. I mean, he's like a, close to a fantasy point per minute guy, but we're talking about a guy that only has offensive skill as a big man and still barely sneaking over. Like, it's still not good, but he's a good play today in DFS at 4,300 on FanDuel and 3,800 on DraftKings.
Do you happen to know what the difference in his rates is when he plays the 4 versus the 5?
I don't.
From a fantasy standpoint?
I don't. I mean, he essentially isn't the 5 this year. The only time that he's been quote unquote the 5 this season is when Damian Jones is also playing. And if you're asking me, he's not the 5 in that scenario, but that's how it's labeled at Cleaning the Glass. So he just doesn't play it now.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, he's played since last year. He's played 705 minutes alongside Holmes. He's at 0.98 DraftKings points per minute. This year, overall, he's at 0.92, which, like you were saying, he's been playing alongside a center. He's played since last year 77 minutes alongside Len. He's at 1.09 DraftKings points per minute, but that probably also has to do with being with the second unit. So still, plenty productive for his salary.
All right, next question. How many minutes does Harrison Barnes play? 5,800 on FanDuel, 5,100 on DraftKings. Getting the ownership for sure. That is coming in right now. 17 on FanDuel, 23 on DraftKings. I gave him 34. I mean, I assume that Harrison Barnes is going to be going back to Harrison Barnes level minutes soon enough. I just don't know when it is.
Played 17 minutes in the first half last game. So I think that
should be the sign, right?
Yeah, 34 is very reasonable.
Has not been good this past month. 0.77 FanDuel points per minute, but if he's in for 34 his normal rates, he's one of the better plays of the day just from like a point per dollar perspective.
Yeah, I mean, he got benched down the stretch against Charlotte. Finished at 26 minutes, but like if he had been in that closing lineup, he would have gotten to 31 to 32 minutes. Like 34 might be a little aggressive just in the sense that he hasn't done it yet, but that's what the first half rotation was. Like he played a normal for most people. It's still a little light for him, but played 17 minutes. And then, like we said, that second half was just a complete wash. So I think 34 is reasonable if you wanted to go like 32. Like the way I view it, I think is I would go 34. And then if I'm getting like an insane amount of Harrison Barnes, I would just take a minute or two off.
Oh, I hate when Harrison Barnes is the best option in Sacramento. Yet here we are.
Well,
I'll happily play. Yeah. I feel more comfortable with Barnes.
I feel more comfortable with Bagley just because he's cheaper.
I mean, 5,100 for Harrison Barnes is like a not correct price tag in general.
For sure. But 3,800 for 26 plus minutes of Bagley is not correct either.
I'll never feel comfortable that 26 minutes for Bagley is something that's happening today, though.
Yeah, that's fair.
They could start Metu today, and I just like, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. So that is the one that actually is one really nice thing. It's not so like Bagley played 28 minutes off the bench 2 games ago. If he had come off the bench last game and played another like 28 minutes, it would be a real problem because it would be like, okay, we have to like think Bagley can do that, but there's nothing like he could just not even play today. The fact that at least he's in the starting lineup now, so we'll get a heads up if that changes, is actually really, really nice.
Absolutely. Obviously, we're more than happy to play a little bit of De'Aaron Fox or Tyrese Halliburton. That's fine. Digital high five to you and I for talking up Buddy Hield on Friday. And then he immediately went out there, shot the lights out and played all of those minutes. So we gave you guys that blueprint. That's for sure.
Yeah. We had a combined like 3 lineups with him.
Yeah. I had him in 1.7% of my shit.
I like I said it then, I was just like, I really want Buddy Hield and I have absolutely no idea how to make it happen. But yeah.
That was the blueprint, though. We definitely knew that one. That's for sure.
Halliburton's playing huge minutes recently, by the way.
He really is massive.
He even got to come back in the game against Cleveland. He was the only one.
Well, he's stupid on FanDuel, so it doesn't matter. 5,700 on DraftKings, 7,100 on FanDuel. Yeah, I like Halliburton a lot, but like value. I can't get that much, Yeah.
5,700 is a pretty nice value. I would say he's probably, well, depending what ends up happening with Alex Len's ownership, but I would say he's probably my favorite of the relatively low owned guys on DraftKings. Like he's 9%, whereas Bagley is 16, Barnes is 23. 5,700 for Halliburton is with the minutes he's playing these days is pretty favorable.
This one's going to be pretty easy. There's a ton of ownership going to Toronto in a pace-up spot against a not good Sacramento team. Van Vliet, Barnes, Siakam, Trent. All 4 of those guys are likely to play 36 to 40 minutes today, and they're all going to get a ton of ownership, including Siakam at 34% on FanDuel. And then we got to talk about Chris Boucher, 5K on FanDuel, 4,300 on DraftKings, power forward center eligibility, likely starting and playing, well, who knows on how many minutes, but I gave him 26, at which point he's going to be in a shit ton of lineups. Anything crazy here for Toronto? Is to just sort of jam the starting 5 as much as you want?
Yeah, jam the starting 5. Boucher in particular, just the very obvious number 1 option here. Having power forward eligibility makes it just really, really easy to get to him. He played like 23 minutes in his first well, not his first. I don't know if it was his first start of the season or not. The first start recently, he played like 23 minutes, but it was in 3 quarters and he just never came back. He played 27 minutes against the Knicks in his last start. He's a very good fantasy producer. The spot is great. Even if he plays like 22 minutes, he probably gets there at 4,300. If he gives you 26 plus, he probably needs to be in your lineup. So he looks great. The rest of these guys, just huge minutes against a bad Kings team. So Van Vliet, Siakam, Barnes, Trent look like good options as well.
Yeah, it's weird how it is in my sheet. It's just this block of green for those 5 guys, and then this block of red. Like, you are not playing Yuta Watanabe, Svi Mikhailiuk, Banton. Like, none of these guys are even sniffing a lineup, and everybody else is just like, get every combination you can. So yeah, there's Boucher at 4,300, whatever you want to call for the centers on Sacramento. And then 5K Dedmon starts looking like worse and worse as we start working our way through this stuff.
Yeah, but like you can play these guys at power.
Oh yeah. Again, not that like I don't think the Dedmon's good, but like he looks like a good value when we start, and he's already like the 5th best center value of the first 6 teams we've talked about.
Yeah, and one thing that I guess we do just need to mention here, and I don't know why it would happen, but if Boucher doesn't start, I would get the hell off Boucher.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else here for this game?
Nope.
This game's a little bit different. Houston at Atlanta, 11-point dogs, this Rockets team. And we kind of just know what's going on for Houston, at least as of now. We still have no Jalen Green, no Kevin Porter, no Daniel House. Eric Gordon is in here. There's some ownership coming to Armani Brooks, 10 to 15% owned. Jayshawn Tate's about 10% owned. Christian Wood, for some strange reason, is only 5% owned at 8,400 on FanDuel with power forward center eligibility. So for like the 10th straight slate, I will be playing a lot of Christian Wood on FanDuel. How are you feeling about the Rockets today?
So just kind of confused by what's going on in YouTube chat right now, where someone says Chris Boucher is it's chasing points because his role changed or something. And then Jeremy Savage can't figure out why a week ago we said Boucher sucks, and now we're saying to jam him in, like being.
I don't normally play guys when they play 0 to 6 minutes.
Yeah, like being good or not in the NBA is totally different than DFS. Seems like it should go without saying. But as far as
Jeremy Savage,
as far as Houston goes, 9,300 for Wood with only center eligibility on DraftKings makes it insanely difficult to get there, I think.
Yeah.
More interested in the wings. Tate at 6,100, Gordon at 53, Brooks at 48. All look reasonable. Nothing that stands out as like a must play spot or anything like that. But I think there is still some value there. There's some upside to be had. Kenyon Martin is 3K flat. He played 21 minutes last game. On some slates, I think that would be useful. Today, I don't really think trying to grab 22 minutes from Kenyon Martin Jr. is that appealing when you can pay like $800 more for Marvin Bagley and others. So there's nothing that really stands out here. Şengün played 22 minutes last game. That was good to see. This is another game where I think it's likely that Tice is in the starting lineup. He started last game, but you still got 34 minutes off the bench from Armani Brooks. He was in the closing lineup over Tice. So wouldn't be surprised if Brooks is still coming off the bench. But even when Tice has been starting, he's basically only playing 3 rotations.
I wish we could roster Şengün more. It's just like impossible.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, if he gets 22 minutes at 4,600 with power forward eligibility, he's fine. But it's just the minutes aren't always going to be there. If you get 17 or 18, you're probably in trouble. So, if you're playing 150 lineups and get to more than 0 Şengün, I think that's fine. But it's definitely not a spot that I would be confident in, even though I do think he's a very good fantasy producer.
Chat's not getting any better for you, so I'm just gonna push through it.
Jason Garnett said he's not a good producer anymore. He's averaging 1.02 DraftKings points per minute this season.
Yeah, 1.1 FanDuel points per minute over the past 30 days as well. He's okay. Should have a few shares. It's gonna be one of the most popular plays of the day.
He said, "I'm playing to win daily." I'm not playing to win daily. I'm doing something else.
Yeah. Atlanta, lots of ownership coming in here. 15% to Trae Young across both sites, 20 to 25% for John Collins, 15% for Clint Capella, 10% for Kevin Huerter, where he's only 4,800 on FanDuel. Even if you want to get to TLC or Gallo or Reddish, there's a little bit of ownership leaking in. It's really hard to want to avoid Atlanta because somebody's going to smack Houston around.
Yeah, great spot for them. Obviously, a lot of blowout potential here, 11-point favorites, but not as risky taking the team doing the blowing out. John Collins should have a day. 7,200 looks like a really good price tag on him. Trae Young, Clint Capella, both in very good spots as well. A little bit less favorably priced, I think, than Collins, but still look pretty good. 3,300 on Cam Reddish is reasonable as a value, especially with guard and forward eligibility on DraftKings. That looks pretty favorable. Just a team that I really would like to get to in general, at least like getting, a piece from this team, because it's just hard to see how all of them have bad games. For what it's worth, Reddish played 17 and a half minutes in his first game back. Wouldn't be surprising if that starts to ramp up. You still got 31 minutes from TLC in that game. So I would expect that over time, TLC's minutes start to come down and Reddish's start to increase.
I don't know, man. I think giving TLC as many minutes as you can is probably a recipe for the future.
Yeah.
Kidding. Yeah, it's anytime you can get to Atlanta, it looks great. Does that, like, if this game stays competitive, are you just assuming that's on the back of a Christian Wood that you can't really get to very easily?
Probably, or it's just spread out where, like Gordon is having a good game, but maybe, and I think, Gordon's fine. So like the Tate, Gordon, Brooks guys, I already said, I think they're fine, but you could just have a game where, because Houston is like probably accurately priced, like Wood has a good game, but not good enough to pay off 9,300. Tate is, okay at 6,100. Gordon scores like 30 fantasy points, which is good, but not great at his salary. Like you could just have one of those games where nobody really puts up a slate winning score, but they're still able to hang in.
All right. Anything else here for the Hawks?
Nah, just enjoying chat.
It's not good today. Lack of understanding is crazy. I don't know where everybody else plays these games where guys don't have salaries and like somebody can be a good play because they're 4,800 one day and not a good play because they're 6,200 the next, but that's where we are.
I'm mostly just confused by the logic that this guy like thinks he's the only one trying to win tournaments, and that's why he's not going to play Boucher.
Yeah. I got nothing. So the Milwaukee Bucks, this line actually opened Boston -1. It is now Milwaukee -1, but even still, let's talk through this Bucks team that is at full strength and full stop unowned here. 8% to Giannis on DK at 11.6. It's the only guy pulling any reasonable ownership. I think that makes sense too, but I mean, Drew Holiday's playing pretty big minutes at 7,700 across both sites, including having shooting guard eligibility on FanDuel. I'll clearly never have a problem getting to Giannis. Do you get to Milwaukee though against Boston? Not a fun fantasy spot.
Yeah, not a great spot, and just so many alternatives on this slate. Like even because like I'm with you, Drew Holiday when he's low owned is always appealing to me in tournaments because he's playing so many minutes. But at the same time, like he's 2% owned right now. We have Brogdon for 200 more at like 7% owned against a fast-paced Golden State team playing a ton of minutes. So it's just the non-Giannis pieces to me just look like pieces where if they get into the lineups as, one of my contrarian guys that have a ceiling, that's fine. But I don't anticipate just like getting to a lot of them. Giannis is tough to get to because of Jokic being on the slate. The one thing though is Giannis does have power forward eligibility. So from a roster construction standpoint, maybe a little bit easier to get there, especially when he's only getting 8% ownership. So Giannis at really low ownership on a slate where it's not going to be difficult to pay up, I don't think. Definitely is interesting.
I'm getting to too much Grayson Allen on I don't mean too much, but like 10% Grayson Allen on FanDuel at 3,900. That is rarely fun for me because I really don't enjoy rostering Grayson Allen, but this is just not like a priority matchup for me. If you get Drew or Middleton or Giannis, that's fine, but it's not the spot. On the Boston side, we've got Jaylen Brown back for this one. That complicates matters. Well, it doesn't complicate anything on DraftKings because he's 9,100 and there's a 0% chance you should play Jaylen Brown today at 9,100. No idea how much he's going to play. I think Tatum looks solid, 9,600 on FanDuel, 9,400 on DraftKings. He's pulling the most ownership on DK. Marcus Smart is pulling the most ownership on FanDuel at about 20%. But again, I don't see a ton of priorities here. A couple guys that fine you could rotate through, but Tatum on DraftKings, Smart on FanDuel are really like the only two major things I like.
Yeah, I think that's about where I am. I would throw Horford in at 6,600 on DraftKings as well. He's a solid fantasy producer. He has plenty of upside. He's only 6,600. Maybe you see a couple of extra minutes in this matchup, which, would obviously be nice. He played 29.6 minutes last game and didn't play his final stint of the fourth quarter. So I do have some interest in Horford as well. And I don't think he's really impacted by Brown being back.
Same. Yeah, it's just Milwaukee Boston is just not that kind of fantasy game. So I don't really have anything else here. You good?
Yep.
Yahoo Fantasy is the presenting sponsor of this show. We've got an offer for you where you can get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. To qualify, all you have to do is be new to Yahoo, sign up for an account using the link below or the link in the description, make a deposit, and play. That is it. We will send you Yahoo will send us your name after you play in your first paid contest. We will then send you an email with a coupon code. If you need immediate access, please just email support@awesemo.com. We can help get you set up. You also get a free $10 of site credit using that link in the description. That'll allow you to get into tonight's $100,000 Monday Night Football baller. I'm laughing at your response right now. We have tools and projections on the website on awesemo.com that specifically give you, that are made specifically for Yahoo, give you your best chance at winning. So that's all I got here. Make sure you're checking out Yahoo and keep your eyes peeled to contenders videos. You might just see a Yahoo one popping up tomorrow.
You're muted.
Oh, I'm not muted.
Oh, never mind. I did the thing where I was watching YouTube and not you. And so your mouth was moving. I didn't hear anything, so I thought you were muted.
Do you want to handle what's going on in chat right now? Put the kibosh on what we see here.
I'm good. I'll let it go. Oh, definitely not taking down any attorneys though.
No, you've got the wrong Eddie. But I promise you, the one that's taking down the tournaments works for us as well.
Yeah,
that would be 1-800-EDDIE behind the scenes. Eddie Lai, great guy. Doesn't get enough love around these parts. Does a lot of work for this site and gets no credit for it whatsoever. Alrighty, let's keep it moving. That's going to spiral out of control. Philly, 3-point favorites in Memphis, 210 total. Philly appears to be at full strength and not getting a ton of ownership, but I think we might need to talk through it because Memphis is running a little bit light here and theirs is really tricky. So not that I just want to play matchups like that. Jaren Jackson is questionable. That's very important. Steven Adams is doubtful. We still have no Brandon Clark, no Zaire Williams, no Ja Morant. On the Philly side, we've got Embiid 10-5 on FanDuel, 13% owned, 11K on DraftKings, 10% owned. If Steven Adams isn't playing this field, I hate doing this. It just feels like a great spot for Joel Embiid. There's just so many good guys today.
Yeah. Not really sure exactly what they would do to stop Embiid. The issue would just be that, he's only a center, so it's going to be tough to get there. He's $1,000 less than Jokic. So yeah, Embiid would look great though, assuming Adams doesn't play.
Yeah.
I mean, Embiid would look good even if Adams plays, but
right. They do not have the size to deal with him then. I think Tobias Harris looks okay for 7,300 on FanDuel, but I don't have any giant priorities coming from the Sixers side. I wish that I did, but it's mostly just Embiid and Harris for me.
Yeah, it's kind of been the same thing for a while now with the Sixers for me. Harris looks fine. Embiid, if you can get there, looks good. Definitely a spot to pay attention to ownership. Embiid is someone where if he's not getting much ownership, it's really appealing to go there because he absolutely can be the highest scoring guy on any slate, even though it is unlikely when Giannis and Jokic are both playing. Right now, he's at 9%. I think that makes sense since you are getting a little bit of a discount off of Giannis and Jokic.
All right, let's go to Memphis. And this one just gets pretty tricky. So I think we have to assume that Jaren Jackson is playing to start.
For now, yeah.
Jaren Jackson is 6,400 on FanDuel, power forward, center eligible, and unquestionably one of the best plays of the day, in my opinion, if he's able to play. At 6,400, that price is crazy to me.
Yeah, 6,400 is insane. It goes back to, and I don't have chat in front of me at the moment, but I'm sure fouls are being mentioned, and if not, they will be in a second. At that price tag, it's just he can play 27 minutes or something. He can lose 9 minutes to foul trouble or 7 minutes to foul trouble and still just smash that price tag. So 7,300 on DraftKings, kind of the same thing, but obviously a little bit riskier. But yeah, he looks great. I assume he would start at the 4 still. This is not a matchup where I would expect them to throw him at the 5.
I don't know why you would want to do it. My assumption is they would go to Tillman
That's my assumption as well.
Okay. And then we get Tillman for 3,400 at center on on DraftKings. So
Yep.
add
Yeah, I was
another
hoping
one
he would
to the
have power
list.
forward eligibility.
Yeah, add another one to the list there. If that breaks the way that I think that it will, then I think Tillman looks like a really nice value. Dylan Brooks is going to look pretty interesting. 6,100 and 6,200, just does a lot when he's out there. Hasn't been, he's been a fantasy point per minute guy on FanDuel so far since he's been back. I'll go to Tyus Jones. That'll be easy. I'll have a little bit of Desmond Bane. That'll be easy. If Jackson happens to get ruled out, Kyle Anderson's price isn't the best, but he's probably playing north of 30 minutes. That looks good. Melton, I'm always interested in a flyer, and particularly at 4,700 on DK. A lot of moving parts for Memphis.
But Josh, you've never liked Xavier Tillman all season. Why would you like him today?
That's right. I'll go to Killian Tilly instead.
But yeah, I'm with you. 3,400 for Tillman looks good. Since last year, he's averaged 0.9 DraftKings points per minute. Assuming he's starting, that looks good. Obviously, there's foul risk there, but he's 3,400. Brooks, if Jackson is out, Brooks' usage should go through the roof. It's high anyway. There'll be more usage for Desmond Bane as well. Jones looks fine. Bane looks fine. If Jackson's in, one other thing too to mention is that his rates do go up when he's not playing alongside Steven Adams. So that, just be another reason to like him.
Yeah. I want to hit on this quickly. Myron Kidd said, will Drummond eat versus Memphis reserves at his $4,900 price tag?
Yes, but
yeah, you should. That's not a super relevant option for you on a day like today, especially with the 27 million pieces of center value that exist.
Yeah. Like the answer there is yes, but you need him to not only get, 30 points or whatever at 4,900, that's still, when you consider the other options at the position, that still might not even get you that far. And
he's going to need 40 at that price tag,
right? And
on a day like today,
right? And assuming he plays 15 minutes or something, like 30 is about all you can hope for.
Yeah. He's if Drummond's price were in the low threes, like a standard issue backup, then you could sort of have that conversation on a day like today. It's not today though.
Yeah, if he were even make him 3,800 or something, I would take Drummond over Len. You could argue Drummond over Tillman. I would take Drummond over pretty much everybody down there. But at 4,900, it's costing you elsewhere in your lineup.
I don't have anything else for Memphis other than pay attention to the Jaren Jackson news and play a lot of these guys. And now we have one of the most broken games of the day. The Charlotte Hornets, 3-point dogs in Dallas. Charlotte slowly but surely getting their bodies back. Still no LaMelo, no Mason Plumlee, no Jalen McDaniels, no Ish Smith. But Terry Rozier is back. And there's a Q tag on PJ Washington, which is interesting. I have him in for right now. On the Dallas side, there is no Luka Doncic, which really complicates matters. Well, sort of. So let's start on Charlotte, where we don't have anybody projected for more than 7% ownership on FanDuel. And that is Cody Martin, who I actually think is the guy that loses minutes the easiest if Terry Rozier is back. I don't see myself getting to a ton of these guys, but I still have interest in Bridges, Rozier, Hayward. Well, Bridges, Hayward, Oubre. If these guys are still going to play 36 to 40 minutes, while the prices are up, there's still good plays to be found here. Bridges is the highest owned guy on DraftKings. How are you managing Charlotte right now?
Yeah, I view it more now as tournament options, assuming they're not going to get tons of ownership. Whereas before it was sort of tournament options, even though they were getting a ton of ownership, just because how are you going to get away from them? I expect that as with guys coming back, that you go from 40 plus minutes to 36 to 38, which when you're priced for 40 plus minutes is a little bit of a problem. There's still obviously a ceiling for these guys though. Without LaMelo on the floor this year, Oubre's at 1.08 DraftKings points per minute. Bridges is at 1.01. Rozier's at 0.96. PJ Washington's 1.01. Cody Martin's 0.89. Hayward's 0.94. These guys are all, or most of them, are still going to play huge minutes, and they all average around a fantasy point per minute. There's still a path to success here, but I do think that getting, especially, assuming Rozier's in, PJ Washington's questionable, assuming he's in, assuming Richards is in, it's just likely that you're getting 38 minutes from guys like Bridges, Oubre, Hayward, which is still good, but their prices are at a point where they've been playing 42 minutes for a while now.
Yeah, I went 38 to Bridges because it seems like he just plays more always, even when they're healthy. I went to 36 on Rozier. I have no comfortability in his minutes. That's scary a little bit to me. 36 for Hayward, 36 for Oubre, 32 for Washington. I maintain the 8-man rotation though. Cody Martin, Nick Richards, JT Thor finishing it out. I got the 28 on Martin. Like I can see him continuing to be in the 30s, but if this game goes the way that they want it to, I don't think Cody Martin is a part of their closing lineup.
Bridges, Oubre, Hayward, Rozier, Washington.
Yeah. So like, I think Cody Martin falls away from those 40-minute games now.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Now they could just as easily play Cody Martin 34 minutes still, and JT Thor plays like 6, and that's fine because they certainly do run concentrated rotations, but it's not the same sort of, you need 40% of all of these guys, but they're very much GPP plays.
Yeah. And PJ Washington's status is definitely important as far as these rotations go.
Yeah. And non-COVID illness, missed their game on the 10th. I have to assume that he's like feeling a little bit better 3 days later. So
yeah,
I'll assume he's in until he's not. We probably won't have that information until lock.
That's where I'm at too.
Then we get to some easy chalk. Let's just state it right now. Jalen Brunson is 6,300 on FanDuel, 5,800 on DraftKings. Safe to say the best play of the day?
Definitely up there. Was like 83% owned last night.
Yeah.
I think I was over the field there. Yeah, he's just, I mean, he's going to play huge minutes. He produces at a high rate. He's in a really, really good spot. It sucks. Like I hate when it's one thing when you get really, really popular guys at, 3,800 or something. I hate when they're 5,800 because there's just so many options around them that you can go to. But at the same time, I think Brunson is just sort of in a tier by himself in that range.
I watched that happen with Cody Martin on Friday. Like, I just didn't get as much. And then he had 6x in 8 minutes and my night was over.
Yeah. I mean, Brunson's played 397 minutes without Luka on the floor now. He's at 1.07 DraftKings points per minute, 25.6% usage rate, 35.4% assist percentage. If you want to add Porzingis to the floor, he's still at 1.06 DraftKings points per minute. Usage rate goes down a little bit to 22.8%. Assist percentage goes up to 37%. And he's likely to give you, 34 plus minutes.
And not only that, great matchup from a defense perspective. Charlotte incredibly shorthanded, and they're the fastest team in the NBA. So this is a massive pace up spot for Dallas, who is the slowest team in basketball right now. So, couldn't get any better here for the Dallas side. What's really crazy is, clearly I'm interested in Porzingis, 8,500 on FanDuel, 8K on DraftKings. He's pulling 30% ownership right now. That feels a little high to me.
I think it seems about right to me. The only reason I would say maybe a little high is that he's only power forward eligible, which obviously you'd rather that than center, but it still limits the number of spots you can get him to. And we've already mentioned a lot of good power forward value where, in the context of, you can play him at power forward instead of center. Like if you're playing Boucher at power forward and you're playing Bagley at power forward, like if you're using those spots for value, it makes it tough to get to Porzingis. So I think it's interesting from like a roster construction standpoint, because if you're taking those spots and giving them to Porzingis, like one of those power forward spots and giving it to Porzingis, that means that either you're trying to find value at a different position that ends up being better than Bagley or Boucher, or it means you're sliding one of them to center, which is fine, but that also makes it more difficult to get to the Jokic, those type of guys. And then also, if you're paying up at power forward, like Giannis is a contrarian option. So like obviously not the same price tier as Porzingis, but there's a lot of value options. There's an elite top tier option. So I think that it's not that I have a problem with Porzingis being popular. I think he absolutely should be. This is a great spot. He's a good fantasy producer. He gets more opportunities without Luka as well. He's at 1.31 DraftKings points per minute this year without Luka on the floor. It's solely I'm not sure how much I can get to. I would guess I get around the 30% mark. It's just like, if this slate broke down a little bit differently in terms of where the value was, I could see me having 100% Porzingis on some slates, but I think it's gonna be hard to do that here, even though it is a great spot.
I don't have anything else to add. You explained it perfectly for me. I don't really have anything else for Dallas either. Like, if you get to like Dorian Finney-Smith a little bit, that's fine from a value perspective on DK, but maybe a little Hardaway. I don't know. No priorities though.
Yeah, I took a bunch of shots at Hardaway last night. He played 23 minutes instead of the 28 plus that I was hoping for. But yeah, I mean, it's a really high upside spot for him. It's the Buddy Hield spot from a couple of days ago. And his usage rate, obviously does go up without Luka being out there. But it's just a, secondary option in tournaments. Porzingis and Brunson, the easy priorities here.
Wizards are 4.5 point underdogs in Denver, 215 total. No Kyle Kuzma for the Wizards, and that has an interesting trickle-down effect to some rates for Washington. We're seeing Beal and Dinwiddie both get into the double digits in ownership, 10 to 15%. KCP, Denny, Montrezl Harrell, Gafford, all pulling a little bit of ownership across all the sites. What do you see for your Wizards?
I don't like the spot. I mean, going into Denver is tough. They played a really slow pace. 5,200 for Dinwiddie is really interesting to me. They said that they were going to start ramping up his minutes, that he wasn't going to play back-to-backs, but that they were going to start ramping up his minutes. Last game against Utah, he barely played. He played like 24 minutes, lost a few minutes to garbage time at the end. The game before that against Detroit, he played 30 minutes in regulation. So far, it kind of seems like a situation where Wes Unseld Jr. wants to play him more minutes and like forgets that he's the coach and doesn't do it. So I can't really give him more than 30 minutes, but there is the chance that in one of these upcoming games, you just really see Dinwiddie pushed and play 34, 35 minutes. But even in 30 minutes at 5,200, he does look like a solid option. Like the price tag is getting pretty cheap on him. So if the ownership's going to be low, I am interested in going there. The kind of problem is he's still not remotely in the same category as Jalen Brunson in terms of projection in that price range. And he is getting some ownership at 15% right now, but I do think Dinwiddie looks like a good value. I think Beal at 8,400, KCP at 3,900 are reasonable as well. Denny Avdi at 3,500 is fine. Nothing that really stands out though, because I hate the matchup.
Dinwiddie, 24.5% usage rate with no Kuzma on the floor so far this season.
What about, is Beal on for that?
I didn't look. That was the only quick pull that I did. Both he and Harrell saw a bit of a usage bump with no Kuzma, which I thought was interesting. Needs more digging.
He's only played 34 minutes with Beal on and Kuzma off. 17.9% usage rate.
Yeah, that makes more sense. On the Denver side, it's basically Jokic and nobody else. Jokic is projected for about 22% ownership on both sites. No one else higher than 3.8 anywhere. We still have a Q tag on Will Barton. That's kind of how I feel, though, for Denver. Jokic and nobody.
Yeah, that's how I feel as well. Jokic looks great. He's the best fantasy producer per minute right now. The only thing that I would mention is he's getting almost 3 times the ownership of Giannis. Giannis is on average around 1.7 DraftKings points per minute to 1.75. Jokic is around 1.85. So it's not like you're getting a massive difference here. Giannis is a few $100s cheaper. He's eligible at more positions. I absolutely love Jokic, so I'm not saying that I'm not going to get to him. I'm not telling anyone else not to. I do think that's at least like an interesting spot that you can move to if Giannis continues to get sub 10% ownership.
I'm with you. And luckily you can roster more than one center on DraftKings today because there's certainly some value to be found. If Barton is out, does that change anything to you? Does anybody immediately be like, how much Bones Highland are you getting to?
Jokic has to do even more. Yeah, so he missed the last game and you got Devon Reed starting. He only played 18 minutes. Bones Highland played 23 off the bench. Marcus Howard played 21 minutes. Campazzo played 29. So if Barton's out, it does open up pieces that you can take shots at. I still wouldn't be super comfortable with how the rotation is going to go, especially if Reed's in the starting lineup. Like if they were to throw Campazzo into the starting lineup or throw Highland into the starting lineup, it would be a sign that they're going to play more minutes, I think. If they're going to use Reed, kind of as a placeholder there, it makes them a little bit riskier. But still, if you were to expect, 22 to 24 minutes from Highland at 3,600, he looks okay. Same for Campazzo at 3,800 if he's going to get 28 minutes or so.
Let's close this out. Phoenix Suns, 3.5-point favorites in Los Angeles. For Phoenix, it's still just no Devin Booker, and we're well aware of how that works now. For the Clippers, however, doubtful tag on Paul George, questionable on Nick Batum. Mikal Bridges is 16% owned on FanDuel. That's the only mark north of double digits other than campaign on FanDuel. Nobody higher than 8% on DraftKings. I think you could roster like 8 different guys for Phoenix, and none of them look better than like 5%ers.
Yeah, and also DeAndre Ayton's still questionable with his non-COVID illness. So he missed the last game. You got 26 minutes from McGee. If Ayton misses this game, you're probably not going to know before lock, but McGee would obviously look fantastic. If Ayton plays, he looks good at 7,300. Paul looks good at 8,300. No issues with Payne, Crowder, Bridges, Johnson. I'm with you. Like nobody really stands out here. The only way somebody stands out from Phoenix today in terms of being a priority is if we were to get, midday news that Ayton's not going to play. But
why is JaVale McGee 4K? Why is he not priced like Andre Drummond?
I don't know.
JaVale McGee is averaging 1.58 FanDuel points per minute over the past 30 days. That's the third highest rate of anyone in the league behind Giannis and Jokic.
Yeah, I have no idea. Like him, Whiteside, Drummond, those types of backup centers, Hernan Gomez, like they should be more because I mean, on the one hand, it's kind of fun in tournaments because like you could play McGee at probably not on this slate, but you could play McGee at 4K and hope that in 16 minutes he gets 32 points. But and that's kind of been the thing with Whiteside, and they're always low on Hernan Gomez. But yeah, they from just a how they should be priced standpoint, they should clearly be more. I mean, McGee, my baseline on McGee has him at 5x, assuming DeAndre Ayton plays.
Same. Same. 16 minutes, 21 fantasy points.
Right.
Clippers, though, got to play a ton here. These are very different on DraftKings and FanDuel. Better pricing on DK. Reggie Jackson looks great on both sites. Terrence Mann looks incredible on DK because he's only 4,400, gets point guard, small forward. Marcus Morris is getting 16% ownership. Ivica Zubac is getting ownership. Brandon Boston is shooting guard, small forward, flat 3K getting ownership. I think you just kind of got to play a lot of the Clippers, especially if Nick Batum ends up out again.
Yeah, agreed. George being out obviously takes a lot of production off the floor. Without him on the floor this year, Reggie Jackson has a 31% usage rate, 1.04 DraftKings points per minute. Jackson played 32 minutes last game. That's a reasonable projection, but he certainly could play more. Also, we've seen him, average more minutes than that all season. So he would look good. Terrence Mann started, played 35 minutes. He's at 0.81 DraftKings points per minute without George this year. So he looks like a pretty solid value. Zubac is okay at 4,700, although probably difficult to prioritize on this particular slate. Brandon Boston at 3K with guard forward eligibility looks very good. 24 minutes last game. And, like you said, if Batum comes back, that makes it riskier. But at the same time, you still got 36 minutes from Kennard last game. You got 15 minutes from Winslow. All of those probably could go to Batum. So Boston would still, if Batum comes back, Boston is still reasonable, but definitely riskier than if Batum is out.
Injury video later today?
Yeah, Greg and I should have that out around 1:30.
Alrighty. And then deeper dive back for 5 o'clock?
Yep.
Another strategy show in the books. Everybody hit that like button if you haven't done it already. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. Coming up next, right now, starting almost immediately, Adam is back recapping Sunday NFL content. It's going to be a good one. Good luck tonight, everybody. Win some money. We'll talk to you again later.